Right, so when we talked about all the components of a UAS, if you recall, we said that human beings are usually the most valuable because human beings are the hardest to have a duplicate of, right? Often humans have a very specific set of skills that make the mission possible, and those skills are not just duplicative. Can't just always have another pilot on standby that can accomplish the same things that I might be able to accomplish as a project, on a project with my particular skills or knowledge. All right, so what this is saying is if you look at this little graphic I created, and really you could have the little wheels going around here where these are iterative, but instead I have this little cross in the middle. So the principles are laid out 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is really a good way to get started with a project, but just understand that by no means does this go in sequential order typically when we're designing a UAS project, and it just one iteration and we're done. Um, all these different, so we're always going to start with the end, and we'll talk about defining the UAS project next here, the next couple minutes. We're always going to start at the end. Like, so our first question is, what do we want to have in our hand at the end of the project? All right. We want to have a three-dimensional map of whatever target landscape we want to go capture. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and define the project so that we can achieve those objectives. Right? Once we've defined those objectives, now we look at, well, what project components do we need? What payload is going to give us that piece of data that we need at the end? Once we know our payload, then we start looking at our aircraft, our equipment, our training, our personnel that we need to fly that payload. Next, we start figuring out, well, what operations, how are we going to make the equipment perform the operations that are going to meet the objectives. So that's where we get into the operations plan. And at any point in the process, we might come across a step that can't be accomplished because of what we've defined in the previous steps.